Hexagram 16. Enthusiasm. Motivating the helper of transformation. The judgment. It furthers one to install helpers and to set armies marching. The sage defines the theme of this hexagram as motivating the helper of transformation, that is, the helper of common sense mentioned in the previous hexagram, through saying the inner yes or inner no. The inner yes to be said to the help coming from the sage and the helpers of the invisible world. The inner no is to be said to all ideas that suggest that help is to be found elsewhere, as in heaven or in human beings to whom a person looks up. The inner no also needs to be said to any spells or beliefs that may be blocking the helpers. When we say the inner no to such mistaken ideas and free ourselves from the spells and projections they have caused, the helper of transformation breaks them. Doing so frees the sage to set one's armies of helpers marching. See hexagram 7, the army, and line 6 of the previous hexagram. The helpers of the invisible world are of incredible variety, since new sorts are constantly being generated to fit unique needs. There are helpers for health, relationships, and money needs, and for finding and fixing things. Helpers include those functions of our bodies that are unfortunately referred to in traditional renderings of the I Ching as inferiors. Such a rendering demonizes them and thus perverts their functioning. Once freed from the spells put upon them, the specific helpers we need are called into action by our sincere pleading for help. They are automatically set in motion when a person is in harmony with the cosmos and participate in his thoughts and actions to actively guide him. Such a person feels supported and blessed. The helpers here, referred to as armies, are those whose task it is to guard a person's chi energy or life force against robbery by the ego. In performing this task, whole armies of helpers combat the constant disorder and destruction created by the ego. However, these helpers become demonized and attack the body when a person looks in the wrong direction for help, such as up to heaven or up to human authorities or to institutionalized ideas. See line 3. The sage makes us aware that the helpers are individualized and invisible entities of the cosmic consciousness, in the same way that humans are also individualized but visible aspects of that same consciousness. Because all helpers are experts that know precisely how to do their jobs, a person is meant to turn the matter entirely over to them as to how they are to accomplish it. This means that he abstains from watching with his inner eye whether anything is happening. In accordance with the cosmic principle of equality, each helper is equal to the other and equal to us. None are inferior or superior, as the traditional I Ching would imply in its reference to inferiors. Just as a mistaken view of them imprisons or perverts them, a correct view frees their ability to help. Their abilities are also hampered when we see them as sacred or as entities to be worshipped. Bringing our true selves to maturity consists in ridding ourselves of all such mistaken ideas about the nature of the cosmos and the helpers. See, activating the helpers. Recognizing where our true help comes from and how readily it is granted inspires us with the inner independence needed to find the right direction for our lives. This is true enthusiasm. In its cosmic meaning, enthusiasm refers to the continuous transformations that occur when a person relates correctly to the cosmos. This means relating from modesty, as described in the previous hexagram. It is modesty that leads a person to say the inner yes to the help coming from the invisible world and the inner no to the ego in all its manifestations. Transformation occurs without effort and meets no resistance because it takes place in the realm of the atom, the inner realm of consciousness. It cannot be achieved through leverage, force, mental contrivance, or through the intervention of an imagined all-powerful entity. Transformations are the result of the harmonious cooperation of the two aspects of the life force, the light and the dark, as described in hexagrams 1 and 2. True enthusiasm is the experience of the harmonious flow of chi energy. The traditional commentary to this hexagram states that movement along the line of least resistance is in harmony with the cosmos. This idea is misleading because the path that is in harmony with the cosmos offers no resistance. Even when a shred of resistance is encountered, it indicates the presence of an ego activity or that a person has set off to do a task without asking for help from the helpers. To follow the line of least resistance is often misread as counsel to offer no resistance to the existing order, which, of course, is what the collective ego would like us to think. Line 1. Enthusiasm that expresses itself brings misfortune. Enthusiasm that expresses itself can refer to the person who, after being helped by the helpers or the sage, talks about it to others who would not understand. Doing this exposes the sage, the I Ching, and the helpers to ridicule, which may undo the help they have given. This is the misfortune mentioned. This line also warns the person who, after having engaged the helpers, now forgets their help and boasts that the outcome is his achievement. By denying their help, he loses it. It also warns the person who, after being helped, interprets this fact as his being favored by God. In another meaning, the line refers to false enthusiasm as a luxurious attitude, as when a person does not care and lapses into indifference. He may be indifferent to what he takes in the form of thoughts or ideas, or to what he does to others, the environment, animals, etc. If he continues, he will surely bring about a cosmic correction. Line 2, firm as a rock, not a whole day. Perseverance brings good fortune. Firm as a rock refers to the inner no that needs to be said to displays of ego in another person or in oneself. The metaphor of the rock indicates that the firmness must be unconditional and unwavering, not merely a mental no, but one said with one's whole being. This line warns the person who is tempted to tolerate ego behavior by taking a resigned attitude that says, oh, well, that's the way he or she is, or I am. There is nothing I can do about it. Such phrases are spells put on the person's true nature that allow the ego to hold the true self as its slave. Saying the inner no to the ego strengthens and aids the person's true self, whereas failing to do so is a form of magnificence, a false enthusiasm that creates a fate. Not a whole day refers to saying the inner no at the first sign of the ego's appearance. Depending on the circumstances, it can be an outer no. The no is said to a person's transgression against himself and to his doing something that does not feel correct. The inner no engages the helper of transformation when it is accompanied by an inner request for help to correct the situation. Always, after saying the inner no, the matter needs to be turned over to the cosmos for resolution. Perseverance brings good fortune means asking once a day whether the inner no needs to be repeated. This practice is continued until the sage, through the RTCM, indicates it can be discontinued. This line can also be a warning not to wait a whole day to ask the sage through the RTCM whether a statement said authoritatively by another is true. This statement can be a diagnosis or belief or an accepted ancient truth. If one does not say the inner no to ideas that are false, they enter the unconscious by default and become part of one's inner program. Line 3. Enthusiasm that looks upward creates remorse. Hesitation brings remorse. Enthusiasm that looks upward describes a person who is looking up to something or someone as an authority, such as a person, institution, idea, or belief. By doing so, he has blocked his inner sense of truth, making it inaccessible. His inner truth is his memory of what cosmic harmony feels like. It is imprinted in the chromosomes of every body cell. Anatomically speaking, the obstruction described by this line may indicate that certain synapses in the limbic system of his brain have shut down. Looking upward brings remorse because it creates the fate of losing one's inner center, as referred to in line 6. Looking upward, literally or figuratively, has the effect of blocking the connection between the limbic system and the heart. A person who looks up at another gives to that person a part of his chi energy. This part is referred to in Hexagram 61, Inner Truth, line 4, as the team horse that goes astray. The two horses are a metaphor for the way the two aspects of the life force cooperate to bring about harmonious transformations. The two aspects are the light and the dark, which are discussed in hexagrams 1 and 2. As two aspects of a whole, they cooperate to complete each other. When one aspect is siphoned off by the other person, the completion can no longer take place. This situation creates abnormalities in the body, among which are disturbances in the linking of the chromosomes and glandular secretions, which affect the instructions that are given internally to the bodily systems. The chromosomes are linked together harmoniously when inner truth leads the psyche and the body. Abnormalities such as an enlarged heart, varicose veins, cancer, etc., reflect the incomplete cooperation of the two aspects of a person's life force. Looking up to another person transfers one's chi energy to him. Chi then manifests in that other person as charisma, which increases in proportion to the number of followers that person attains. Only when a person says the inner no to his looking up to another, living or dead, or to an idea or body of authority, can he retain his own life energy and return to harmony with his inner truth. Normally, a person's common sense tells him to say no to attempts of the ego, either in himself or in another, to steal his life energy. However, here, his looking up with awe has blocked his common sense. consciously saying the inner no to looking up to anything or anyone frees his common sense. Seed phrases connected with this line include commandments, pacts, and pledges of loyalty to another or to something outside of himself. Such pledges separate him from his unity with the cosmos and block him from its guidance and protection. Line 4. The source of enthusiasm. He achieves great things. Doubt not. You gather friends around you as the hair clasp gathers hair. This line states that the sage is the source of true enthusiasm. The sage represents the ability of the cosmic consciousness to put into words and thoughts its feeling experiences of the cosmic whole. The sage speaks for the cosmos as a whole, including humans. This line is also saying that when a person is centered within himself and sees the sage in the presence of others, he gathers them as friends. Because of their complementarity, everyone is furthered. The metaphor of the hair clasp that gathers hair points to the cosmic principle of complementarity that always exists between two aspects of the cosmic whole that attract each other. Their movement toward each other is felt as an inspiring enthusiasm. In regard to individual tasks, we need to ask the sage to gather the particular helpers that are experts in the field. Then we need to ask the helper of transformation to bring the process to completion. It does this by bringing to the process the two kinds of life force mentioned in the previous lines, thus giving it duration. The source of enthusiasm, from the standpoint of the collective ego, is attributed to charismatic human leaders who present people with ideas, brilliant ideas, and projects that will bring glory or redemption to humans. This line can refer to a person who believes he is such a source of enthusiasm for others. By putting himself in the place of the sage and the helpers, he imprisons them. Instead of being a signpost who points to them as the true sources of help, he leads people to believe that he is the right source of help for them. He not only creates a fate for himself, he leads his followers into a fate. To extinguish his fate, he needs to apologize to the cosmos for his arrogance and rid himself of his self-image as the one who gathers others around him. Saying this inner no arouses the helper of transformation to extinguish his fate. See, freeing yourself from self-images. Line 5. Persistently ill and still does not die. A person or situation he has created remains persistently ill when he attempts to solve his problem by balancing conflicting forces or by treating only the symptoms. The remedy of all problems is to identify their true causes, which invariably lie in the psyche in the form of mistaken ideas and beliefs, and to rid oneself of them with the aid of the helpers. These mistaken ideas are beliefs as deluded enthusiasms, are all part of the demonic sphere of consciousness and need to die for the person or situation to get well. Deluded enthusiasm includes those mistaken ideas a person clings to because he thinks they are his only sources of help, or because they flatter the ego in him. What they have in common is that they exclude the fact that a person has access to cosmic help. A persistent illness, referred to by this line, is caused by one aspect of the life force, the light, being suppressed in a person. This happens when he adopts the mistaken idea that humans are superior because they have language. A host of other mistaken ideas are inferred from this idea, which also need to be examined and deleted. Among them is the idea that the mind is superior to the body or to matter. This idea causes the person to give all his credence to thinking. He exists, so to speak, only in his head, with the rest of himself relegating to insignificance, relegated to insignificance. Dividing oneself in this or similar ways, or being divided by others through their mistaken ideas, spells, or projections, make a person susceptible to illness. This line also applies to people whose enthusiasm is to rely on intellectual or esoteric knowledge. Doing so suppresses their inner truth and leads to sickness of the mind. To get well, such a person needs to rid himself of all the ideas and images that glorify such knowledge, as in the expressions, "To know is to be like God." The human mind is there to reflect the glory of God. "I think, therefore I am." The human mind is what makes us superior to nature, and like ideas by which the human mind is seen as evidence that humans are superior. Likewise, in all the ways in which we place mind over body, we demonize our animal nature, the body, thus turning its needs into drives. These demonized helpers appear in dreams and meditations in frightening animal forms. A related mistaken view is to see one's body as a set of mechanics, as in plumbing or wiring. This view, transposed to nature in general, gives rise to the idea that nature operates through the law of changes. Thus comes the belief that making changes is the way to overcome obstacles in life. This view fails to take into account that the cosmos and nature remove obstacles through transformation. See transformation versus changes. The mechanical view of the body creates parallel systems within the body, such as parallel glands, tumors, that operate to correspond with the person's mistaken beliefs. Since these beliefs are contrary to the true needs of the body, they make him ill. A person's suffering indicates the presence of mistaken ideas and beliefs, such as his belief in changes or the belief that life is hard, or phrases and images that imply that humans are born into an indifferent universe or that see the body or life as a problem. The fate they create can be ended if the person will rid himself of these false mental programs. C. Freeing yourself from seed phrases and images. Line 6. Deluded enthusiasm. But if after completion one changes, there is no blame. Deluded enthusiasm refers to an idea to which a person has attached himself and which has led to a dead end. The enthusiasm can have been his attachment to a person as a wise leader, or to an idea that seemed full of inspiration, or to a cure that now shows itself to be unsuccessful. The delusion can come either in the form of a burnout, a complete exhaustion of a mistaken idea, or in the form of a fate. The fate can either make the person attempt to find the true causes by looking within, or he may look without for another ready-made answer that leads him to yet another mistaken idea that suffices because it makes him feel enthusiastic or hopeful. Danger lies in being drawn to an opposite idea through believing that because I was deluded by the previous idea, it must mean the opposite is true. An example is someone who, after experiencing the failure of a scientific therapy, now casts about for an esoteric or spiritual one. His way of thinking is typical of the rational and fantasy minds when they are disconnected from the person's inner truth. He needs to say the inner no to his thinking in opposites. This frees the helper of transformation, which in turn frees him from his fate. It also frees those synapses in the brain that have been closed, preventing access to his inner truth. It needs to be added that the phrase, but if after completion one changes, there is no blame, is misleading if the word change is taken to mean that the remedy lies in changing behaviors, lifestyle, or beliefs, which is certainly the way the collective ego suggests that changes should be made. Such changes are always superficial because they leave in place and untouched the false seed phrases within the person's inner program that have been the cause of his problems. The true change meant by this line calls for what is stated in other lines of the I Ching as a real change of heart. This can only take place by removing the false inner program. It is a deluded enthusiasm to think that one can make enduring changes, transformation, in any other way. Now, for my reflections on this. So, in the gene keys, this is in my attraction sphere. If I go off the tropical astrology and versatility and mastery and indifference are the gift, city, and shadow. And what I hear for myself in this and for the people that I work with is they do have a lot of knowledge in their background. They do understand these esoteric teachings or spiritual teachings or practical teachings, and they're still lost. They're still lost in pendulum and swinging between the extremes of like plant medicine and or therapy and or whatever else that comes across their radar. And they can be swung by their friends really easily or swung by a social media influencer who has lots of followers because all that following implies that the person knows what they're doing, right? It's called social proof in marketing. And it's a bias that can be installed in us because if we're used to going with the crowd or with family, like, oh, we're all doing this thing, everyone's doing this thing, let's go and do it. It's just built in, it's built into the body, right? But when you don't understand your animal body, when you do not understand the mechanisms underneath what motivates you and your attitudes, which comes from a deeper connection to the body, then you get swung very easily into these larger groups of communities or like truthers or whatever it is that are still kind of looping in the same patterns. Because what people are really looking for is that the tribal to be safe, to be with other people who feel the same thing, who speak about the same stuff, which is in the illusion of language, right? Where because someone says the same things that you do, or believes in the same thing, or shares the same Bible verses, or whatever, you just assume that, oh, they're your people, right? Not necessarily true. Because if you could connect into your animal body might say something completely different. Like these people are actually siphoning my chi. These people are stealing my energy. These people don't want transformation, they want change. And in the I Ching, it speaks to those definitions very specifically. Is that transformation requires a one-way trip. And in that one-way trip, you can be attacked by family, collective ego, your own ego, because you're stepping out of the gravity of what everybody finds comfortable, or what the majority finds comfortable for now. So if you're contemplating this key or wanting to connect deeper into it, what I do is I look through the lens of the five personality patterns, and you can choose whether or not you want to go into this as well, because it might not be your truth. But there's two survival patterns in this that would relate to this gene, this hexagram in particular, is the enduring and the rigid. So the rigid can adopt behaviors purely out of reciting what the book tells them to or the specialist tells them to, right? But they have a disconnection from their core self. And in that, the rigid will also have issues with their sexuality. Like they can't really, or they struggle with, or they have issues with being able to love one person and be sexually attracted to the same person. They can be split between, I love you, but I don't feel sexually attracted to you. And they can also struggle with self-pleasure. Self-pleasure can become quite mechanical with a goal as opposed to just enjoying yourself and having fun. And the other one is the endurer in this. And the endurer is going to be a theme in a lot of the I Ching because it struggles with saying an inner no. its inner no and inner yes are miswired, and it's at a somatic level, the endurer will struggle to say a no. The endurer survival pattern will struggle to say no. So if you have a bit of endurer in you, the way to navigate that is acknowledging the part of you that feels like you need space. It feels like someone's watching you, and that watching you pressure can make you can give you or feed your ego to give you false readings, let's say. So in the context of the I Ching and saying the inner no, you can actually say an inner no to the other person's pressure that you feel is coming onto you. This is a feeling, right? In the world of psychology, you could say, oh, that's just a projection. Maybe, maybe not. When you say the inner no, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter if it's a projection, right? You just say it. It eventually just dissolves. And you ask the RTCM, the retrospective three coin method. Like I've got 3 5 senses right here that I use, and I grab whatever coins I can if I've left them somewhere around the house. Is that you do it? You just ask the sage, do I need to keep saying the inner no towards this person? And you'll get your answer. You'll get your answer. And that relationship, like any relationship with a sage, is built. And I recommend building it over time without waiting for crisis or disaster. Because if you're in crisis and disaster, your survival patterns are already in play, and there's less chance that you're going to listen to the sage and receive the help as help, because you'd be clutching at them like saviors. And if you're used to looking at saviors or people on pedestals, then connecting deeper into your body and your inner truth is an important key. And asking for help from a neutral place without expectation will also help you get there too. And there's so much more I could speak about this. I'll most likely speak about it in future hexagram videos. But that's all I have to say right now because I feel I need to stop. Mad love. Bye.